What if I told you that the greatest structures of antiquity, the pyramids of Egypt, the statues of Easter Island, and the temples of Cambodia, were not built haphazardly? What if they were all part of a single global project mapped out thousands of years ago? Megaliths are scattered across the globe, connected by invisible lines and strict mathematical laws. They are aligned along the same latitudes and form a planetary grid known only to a select few. Coincidence? Or is this the greatest plan in human history, left to us as a legacy by a mysterious pre-civilization? Today, we will try to decipher this message in stone. The ancient world is full of mysteries, and every week, we try to lift the veil on one of them. If you are interested in the secrets of history and like to ask uncomfortable questions, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new episodes. And now the main question for you. Do you think this megalithic system is real proof of the existence of an ancient global civilization? Or is it just a series of amazing coincidences and biased interpretations? Write your reasoned opinion in the comments. It will be very interesting to read. Our journey into one of humanity's greatest mysteries begins on the Giza Plateau in Egypt. Here, under the scorching desert sun, time seems to have frozen in eternity. Millions of tourists come here every year to see the last of the surviving wonders of the ancient world, the Great Pyramid of Cheops. But next to it stands a silent witness to the ages, perhaps holding the greatest secret of our civilization. This is the Great Sphinx, a giant sculpture with the body of a lion and the head of a man, carved from a single rock. Official Egyptology claims that it was created during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra, about 2,500 years before our era. According to this version, the ancient Egyptians of the 4th dynasty spent several decades transforming a limestone rock into a grandiose monument that served as a guardian of the pyramids. However, the marks on its body tell a completely different story. A story that could overturn our entire understanding of the past. According to a number of independent geologists, such as Dr. Robert Schoch of Boston University, the deep vertical grooves on the limestone body of the Sphinx and the walls of the trench surrounding it could not have been left by the wind and desert sand. These are classic traces of water erosion caused by heavy and prolonged rainfall. Such grooves are only formed by rainwater flowing down the rock over thousands of years. But when did such rains occur in Egypt? Climatologists and paleontologists are unanimous. Between 12,000 and 5,000 BC, during the African humid period. This pushes the age of the Sphinx back thousands of years, to an era we are accustomed to thinking of as a time of primitive hunters and gatherers. But who could have created such a monumental structure, requiring the most sophisticated engineering knowledge and the coordinated efforts of thousands of people? This question is just the tip of the iceberg of mysteries surrounding the Giza complex. The most striking discovery concerns not only the age, but also the exact location of the entire complex on our planet. The Great Pyramid of Cheops is located at a latitude of 29 degrees and 97 hundredths of a degree north. This number, when multiplied by 43,200, a sacred number in many ancient cultures, gives us the length of the Earth's equator with astonishing accuracy to within a few meters. But another coincidence seems even more incredible. The speed of light in a vacuum is 299,792,458 meters per second. and the latitude coordinates of the Great Pyramid in decimal notation are 29.979,258 degrees. The numerical coincidence is accurate to the 7th decimal place. Coincidence? Or did the ancient builders somehow know one of the fundamental constants of the universe? It is the Sphinx, looking directly east, at the point where the sun rises on the spring equinox, that sets the first coordinate in this mysterious global system. It is like a key turning in the lock of time, opening up access to a map drawn on the planet itself long before the emergence of all known civilizations. If we draw a line from the Giza Plateau strictly east or west along the 30th parallel, we will begin to encounter other ancient and sacred sites with a regularity that is frightening for a coincidence. This line is not just an imaginary line on a globe. It is like an invisible thread connecting the scattered fragments of a culture unknown to us. A culture that apparently possessed knowledge of the exact dimensions of our planet, the speed of light, and, most incredibly, the technology to build cyclopean structures all over the Earth. What if the location of the complex in Giza was not a random choice made by the ancient pharaohs, but a carefully calculated zero point, the main node in a global coordinate network, the existence of which we are only beginning to guess at? Before we embark on a journey along this mysterious line, it is worth taking another look at the Sphinx. It has been silent for many millennia, but its gaze, fixed on eternity, seems to ask us a question. Are we ready to see what is hidden in plain sight? Starting from Giza and heading strictly east along the 30th parallel north, we seem to be following a route laid out by unknown cartographers of antiquity. The first significant site on our journey is Petra in Jordan, a city carved into the pink rocks of the desert. This archaeological complex, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and recognized as one of the new wonders of the world, is located just a few dozen kilometers from our route. Petra amazes not only with the beauty of its facades carved into the living rock, but also with the mystery of its origin. It is officially believed that the city was founded by the Nabateans in the 4th century BC, but many structures demonstrate a level of craftsmanship and architectural complexity that is difficult to attribute to a nomadic trading people. Some researchers suggest that the Nabateans merely used and completed much older structures. Continuing eastward, our route crosses the southern regions of Iraq, the cradle of human civilization, where the Sumerians first invented writing and the wheel and created the first city-states. Here, in the ancient city of Ur, stood the great ziggurat, a stepped pyramid that served as a temple to the moon god Nana. The ziggurat in Ur, dating back to the 3rd millennium BC, is one of the best preserved structures of its kind and is located almost exactly on our line. The 30th parallel then takes us to Iran, to the ruins of Persepolis, the capital of the powerful Achaemenid Empire, founded by King Darius I in the 5th century BC. This grandiose palace complex, burned down by Alexander the Great in 330 BC, still amazes the imagination with its scale and precision of construction. Stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons are fitted together with jeweler's precision, without the use of any binding mortar. Moving further east, we reach the territory of modern Pakistan, where one of the most mysterious civilizations of antiquity flourished in the Indus River Valley, the Harappan, or Indus Valley Civilization. Its largest cities, Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, are located in close proximity to our 30th parallel. These cities, which existed in the 3rd millennium BC, are striking for their level of urban planning, which was unattainable for other civilizations of that time. In Mohenjo-Daro, Archaeologists have discovered a complex water supply and sewage system, public baths, wide paved streets laid out strictly according to the cardinal points, and multi-story houses made of standard-sized fired bricks. The city was planned as a single entity, with a clear system of neighborhoods and a central citadel. Such a level of urban planning was not found anywhere else in the world until the Roman Empire. After India, our route crosses the majestic Himalayas, passing near Mount Kailash in Tibet, a sacred peak for 4 religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and the ancient Tibetan religion of Bon. This pyramidal mountain, 6,714 meters high, is considered the center of the world and the abode of the gods. Surprisingly, no climber has ever conquered this peak. All expeditions have failed for various reasons. Further east, our journey takes us to the heart of China, to the city of Xi'an, the ancient capital of 13 dynasties. It was here that the famous terracotta army was found, guarding the tomb of the first emperor of unified China, Qin Shi Huangdi. But even more intriguing are the dozens of giant earthen pyramids located in the vicinity of Xi'an. Some of them are significantly larger than the Egyptian pyramids, but the Chinese government still does not allow detailed research. If we travel west from Giza along the same 30th parallel, the picture is no less striking. The line crosses the Atlantic Ocean, passing through the infamous Bermuda Triangle, an area of anomalous phenomena and mysterious disappearances. It then comes ashore in Florida and crosses the territories of the ancient civilizations of Mesoamerica, the Olmecs, Mayans, and Aztecs. This amazing chain of ancient sacred sites stretching across the globe along the 30th parallel cannot be a mere coincidence. It resembles a carefully laid out route, an ancient highway of knowledge and power connecting the most important centers of a global civilization unknown to us. Now, let's shift our attention away from the 30th parallel and look at the big picture of the global connections between ancient sites. If we connect Giza and other key points on the planet with straight lines on a globe, the so-called Great Circle arcs, representing the shortest distances between points on a sphere, we get even more striking and mathematically accurate results. Let's draw such a line from the Giza Plateau across the Atlantic Ocean in a westerly direction. This great circle arc will lead us with surprising accuracy to the giant geoglyphs of the Nazca Desert in Peru. These famous drawings, covering an area of more than 500 square kilometers, were created between 500 BC and 500 AD by representatives of the Nazca culture. The Nazca geoglyphs include images of more than 70 different animals and birds: hummingbirds, spiders, monkeys, killer whales, dogs, lizards, as well as hundreds of geometric figures and more than 800 straight lines, some of which stretch for up to 30 kilometers. The most striking thing about these drawings is that they can only be seen from a great height, from an airplane or helicopter. From the ground, only shallow furrows in the rocky desert soil are visible. Who created these giant images, and for whom? Official archaeology suggests that they were ritual paths or an astronomical calendar of the Nazca people. However, this theory does not explain the main mystery. Why make drawings whose full scale is invisible from the ground? Some lines are perfectly straight and stretch for tens of kilometers without deviating by a single degree, despite crossing dry riverbeds, hills, and gorges. Creating such lines required not only precise geodetic knowledge, but also the ability to control their straightness from the air. Modern researchers find it difficult to reproduce such accuracy even with GPS navigation and laser theodolites. How did the ancient inhabitants of the Andes manage to do this? Even more strange is that some of the Nazca lines point to important points on the very global grid we are exploring. Extending the Giza-Nazca line further across the Pacific Ocean, we arrive exactly at Easter Island, with its famous Moai stone statues. The distance from Giza to Nazca is exactly 1/4 of the length of this giant circle that encircles the entire planet in a large arc. Now let's turn to another mysterious object, the City of the Gods, Teotihuacan, in Mexico. This grandiose archaeological complex, located 50 kilometers northeast of modern Mexico City, is one of the largest ancient cities in America. During its heyday, from the 2nd to the 7th century AD, it was home to between 100 and 200,000 people. The main structures of Teotihuacan, the 75-meter-high Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the citadel with the Temple of the Feathered Serpent Quetzalcoatl, were built according to a strict geometric plan. The central axis of the complex, the famous 4-kilometer-long Avenue of the Dead, is deviated from the north-south direction by 15.5 degrees to the east. For a long time, archaeologists considered this deviation to be accidental, but modern astroarchaeological research has revealed its profound meaning. On the day of the summer solstice, the sun sets exactly along a line perpendicular to the axis of the Road of the Dead. Moreover, this direction points to the rising point of the brightest stars of the Pleiades during the construction of the complex. But the most amazing discovery concerns the layout of Teotihuacan as a whole. American researcher Hugh Harleston, Jr. discovered that the location of the temples and pyramids along the Road of the Dead exactly replicates the location of the planets in the solar system. If the Pyramid of the Sun is taken as the central star, the distances between the structures are proportional to the orbital distances of the planets from the Sun. It is striking that this stone model of the solar system includes not only the planets known to the ancients, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, but also those that were only discovered in modern times: Uranus in 1781, Neptune in 1846, and Pluto in 1930. How could the ancient builders of Teotihuacan have known about the existence of these distant planets? Teotihuacan is also an important hub in the global network of megaliths. It lies on a large arc connecting Stonehenge in England and Rapa Nui Island in the Pacific Ocean. These three sites, separated by thousands of kilometers of ocean and built in different eras, form a perfect straight line on the surface of the globe. Our journey through this mysterious planetary grid takes us to one of the most isolated points on Earth, the island of Rapa Nui, better known to Europeans as Easter Island. This small triangular piece of volcanic land, covering an area of only 164 square kilometers, is lost in the boundless expanse of the Pacific Ocean, 3,500 kilometers from the nearest inhabited coast. But despite its small size and remoteness, the island holds one of the greatest mysteries in human history. Here, in the middle of the ocean desert, ancient craftsmen created nearly 1,000 giant stone statues called moai. These silent giants, ranging from 3 to 21 meters in height and weighing up to 80 tons each, have been silently gazing at the island for over 1,000 years. The official version, accepted by most archaeologists, states that the statues were created by the ancestors of the modern Rapa Nui people, Polynesian settlers who arrived on the island between 800 and 1200 AD. According to this theory, Between the 13th and 16th centuries AD, the islanders carved the multi-ton figures out of compressed volcanic ash in the Rano Raraku quarry, and then somehow transported them up to 18 kilometers to the coast. However, this beautiful theory leaves far more questions than answers. First, transporting 80-ton statues across rough terrain would have required hundreds of people, many trees for making rollers and sleds, and a huge amount of rope. But according to paleobotanists and palynologists, Easter Island was never covered by dense forests capable of providing such an amount of wood. Second, how could a group of primitive islanders who didn't know metal tools and didn't have any lifting mechanisms lift and put statues weighing tens of tons on stone pedestals called ahus? Many modern experiments to recreate the process of transporting and installing even small copies of moai have ended in failure or required the use of modern technology and materials. Thirdly, most of the statues on the island do not face the ocean, as one might expect from a seafaring people, but look inland, as if guarding something hidden in its depths. Only 7 moai on Ahu Akivi face west, toward the ocean, and, surprisingly, their gaze is directed precisely toward the nearest inhabited island of Polynesia. But the biggest mystery of Easter Island is not how the statues were created, but why this particular island was chosen for their placement. Rapa Nui is a key node in a global system of megalithic sites, and its location demonstrates striking mathematical connections to other ancient centers. As we mentioned earlier, Easter Island lies on the same arc of a large circle as the pyramids of Giza and the Nazca geoglyphs. But this is just one of several striking geometric connections. Rapa Nui is located at a distance from the Great Pyramid, equal to the golden ratio of the Earth's circumference. This means that if we divide the length of the arc of the large circle from Giza to Easter Island by the remaining part of the circumference, we get the famous number phi, 1.618 thousandths. The golden ratio is a fundamental mathematical constant that is found everywhere in nature, in the arrangement of leaves on a stem, in the shape of seashells, in the proportions of the human body, and in the structure of galaxies. This proportion is considered the standard of harmony and beauty, and has been used by the greatest architects and artists from the ancient Greeks to the masters of the Renaissance. Could it be that the most remote island on the planet happened to be located at the golden ratio point relative to the main megalithic complex in Giza? The probability of such a coincidence is negligible. Moreover, Easter Island is almost the exact antipode, the diametrically opposite point on the globe, of the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley. If we could drill a tunnel through the center of the Earth from the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, we would emerge just a few kilometers from Easter Island. And Mohenjo-Daro, as we remember, is located on the very 30th parallel north latitude from which our exploration began. Continuing our journey along the Great Circle connecting the pyramids of Giza, the Nazca geoglyphs, and Easter Island, we cross the endless expanse of the Pacific Ocean and arrive in Southeast Asia. Here, in the heart of modern Cambodia, amid impenetrable jungles, lies one of the greatest temple complexes in human history, Angkor Wat. This grandiose architectural ensemble was built in the first half of the 12th century AD by order of the Khmer king Suryavarman VII. Officially, the complex is considered a Hindu temple dedicated to the god Vishnu, although it was later used by Buddhists. Angkor Wat is the largest religious building in the world, covering a total area of about 200 hectares and surrounded by a moat 190 meters wide. But the grandeur of Angkor Wat lies not only in its colossal size. The entire complex is a giant stone model of Hindu cosmology. The central tower, 65 meters high, symbolizes the sacred Mount Meru, the mythical axis of the world around which the sun, moon, and stars revolve. The four smaller towers represent the four peaks of Mount Meru, and the surrounding moat symbolizes the world ocean. However, the most striking feature of Angkor Wat is its astronomical and geographical connection to the global system of ancient structures. The complex is oriented to the cardinal points with an accuracy of less than 1 degree, which required the highest knowledge of geodesy and astronomy. The main entrance to the temple faces west, unlike most Khmer temples, which makes it unique among the religious buildings of the region. But the main mystery of Angkor Wat lies in its precise location relative to other objects in the global network. The temple complex is located exactly 72 degrees east of the pyramids of Giza. 72 is not a random number in the sacred numerology of ancient civilizations. It is one of the key numbers associated with the precession of the Earth's axis, the slow shift of our planet's axis of rotation, which leads to a gradual change in the position of the stars in the sky. The full cycle of precession is approximately 25,920 years. During this time, the vernal equinox passes through all 12 constellations of the zodiac. Each sign of the zodiac occupies 30 degrees on the ecliptic, and its passage through it lasts 2,160 years. But 1 degree of this majestic cosmic shift takes exactly 72 years. Thus, the location of Angkor Wat, 72 degrees east of Giza, creates a spatial connection between the two complexes based on a fundamental astronomical cycle. This cannot be a coincidence. It is evidence of the builder's profound knowledge of celestial mechanics. But Angkor Wat is not the only remarkable site in this region of the global network. Moving further west, we encounter the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, one of the largest cities of the mysterious Indus Valley civilization. This ancient metropolis, which flourished from the 26th to the 18th century BC, demonstrated a level of urban planning and engineering that was unparalleled in the ancient world. The streets of Mohenjo-Daro were laid out strictly according to the cardinal points and intersected at right angles, forming a regular grid of neighborhoods. The city had a developed water supply and sewage system using fired ceramic pipes and septic tanks. The houses had toilets connected to the city sewer system, a luxury unavailable to residents of many European cities until the 19th century. It is striking that archaeologists have found no palaces, temples, or other monumental structures characteristic of ancient civilizations in Mohenjo-Daro. Instead, the city consisted of neat residential quarters, public granaries, and swimming pools. It gives the impression of a highly organized, egalitarian society with no sharp division between rulers and subjects. The Indus Valley civilization disappeared as suddenly as it appeared, around 1900 BCE. The reasons for its demise remain a subject of scientific debate. Some researchers, having studied the melted stones and abnormally high levels of radiation in certain areas of Mohenjo-Daro, have put forward a striking hypothesis about the use of some kind of weapon of enormous destructive power in ancient times, possibly similar to modern nuclear weapons. So far, we have mainly talked about the geography of ancient sites, the lines and angles connecting them across continents and oceans. But what if we look inside these mysterious structures themselves? We would discover that they are veritable stone encyclopedias of mathematical knowledge, encrypted textbooks on geometry, astronomy, and physics. And the language of this science in stone is strikingly universal. It is sacred geometry, based on fundamental mathematical constants. Let's start with the most famous and studied object, the Great Pyramid of Giza. At first glance, it is just a huge pile of stones stacked in the shape of a four-sided pyramid. But behind its outward simplicity lies a mathematical perfection that amazes modern scientists. The ratio of the perimeter of the pyramid's base to its height is equal to 2 pi, accurate to 3 decimal places. This means that ancient builders knew pi, one of the most important mathematical constants, the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. Thousands of years before it was calculated by the ancient Greek mathematician Archimedes. But that's not all. If we add the height of the pyramid and half the length of its base, and then divide this sum by the height, we get the number phi, the golden ratio, equal to 1 and 618 thousandths. This ratio, considered the standard of harmony and beauty in nature and art, was laid down in the planet's main structure long before European mathematicians gave it a name. The pyramid is also an accurate scale model of the northern hemisphere of the Earth in a ratio of 1 to 43,200. If we enlarge the pyramid 43,200 times, we get an exact copy of the northern half of the globe. The height of the pyramid multiplied by this coefficient gives the distance from the center of the Earth to the North Pole, with an error of less than 1%. The number 43,200 is not accidental. It is closely related to the cycle of the Earth's axial precession. The complete cycle of precession lasts 25,920 years, but the ancient sages divided it into smaller periods. 600 degrees of precession, which is 1/3 of the complete cycle, lasts exactly 43,200 years. This number is found in the mythological systems of many peoples of the world as the most important time cycle. Now let's cross the Atlantic Ocean to England, to the famous Stonehenge. This megalithic circle on the Salisbury Plain is not just a chaotic pile of ancient stones. It is a complex astronomical instrument, a stone computer that allows one to predict solar and lunar eclipses with high accuracy, determine the days of the solstices and equinoxes, and track the complex cycles of the moon's movement. The geometry of Stonehenge is also based on the sacred numbers pi and phi. The diameter of the inner circle of blue stones and the outer sarsen ring are in the golden ratio. The entire structure is inscribed in a complex system of concentric circles and regular polygons. The distances between the stones correspond to specific astronomical periods, and the angles between the various elements indicate important points of sunrise and sunset. In distant Mesoamerica, in Teotihuacan, we also find traces of a universal mathematical language. As we already know, this complex is a stone model of the solar system. But the unit of measurement used in its construction was a special measure equal to 1 meter and 60 centimeters. This unit, which researchers call hunab, is almost equal to the number phi expressed in meters. All the main distances between the pyramids and temples of Teotihuacan are multiples of this sacred number. The length of the Road of the Dead, the distance from the Pyramid of the Sun to the Pyramid of the Moon, the perimeters of the main structures, everything is subject to this harmonious proportion. Ancient architects literally built their city according to the golden ratio, and there are hundreds of such examples around the world. From the Mayan temples in the jungles of Mexico and Guatemala to the stone circles in the Scottish mountains, from the Christian cathedrals medieval Europe to the Shinto shrines in Japan. Everywhere we see the same mathematical principles, the same sacred proportions, the same fundamental constants. This cannot be a coincidence or the result of independent development. It is evidence of the existence of a single source of mathematical knowledge that was available to builders of ancient structures around the world. They spoke a universal language of numbers and geometry that was understood by the initiated anywhere on the planet. We have already mentioned several times the precession of the Earth's axis, a magnificent cosmic cycle lasting 25,920 years. Modern astronomy discovered this phenomenon relatively recently, traditionally attributing it to the ancient Greek astronomer Hipparchus, who lived in the 2nd century BC. However, accumulating archaeological and architectural evidence indicates that ancient civilizations not only knew about precession thousands of years before Hipparchus, but also used it as a giant celestial clock to accurately date eras and create long-term calendars. Precession occurs because the Earth is not a perfect sphere. It is flattened at the poles. The gravitational pull of the Sun and Moon on the equatorial bulge of our planet causes its axis to slowly describe a cone in space, like a spinning top. As a result of this movement, the vernal equinox gradually shifts among the stars, passing through all 12 constellations of the zodiac. The most striking example of ancient knowledge of precession is the so-called Orion correlation theory, developed by Belgian researcher Robert Bovell in the 1990s. Studying the relative positions of the 3 Great Pyramids at Giza, he noticed a striking similarity to the configuration of the 3 bright stars in the Orion belt: Alnitak, Alnilam, and Mintaka. But the most surprising thing was that the pyramids corresponded to the position of the stars not in the modern era, but in the distant past. Using computer programs for astronomical modeling, Buell established that the perfect correspondence between earthly and celestial objects was observed around 10,500 BC. In that distant era, on the day of the spring equinox, Orion's belt reached its lowest point on the southern horizon, completing one great cycle and beginning a new ascent to the zenith. It was a time of cosmic zero hour, a moment of renewal in the celestial clock of precession. And it is precisely this date that the entire Giza complex points to. Moreover, during the same era, the Great Sphinx, symbolizing the constellation Leo, looked directly at its celestial counterpart rising in the east on the day of the spring equinox. This was the time of the Age of Leo in the precessional cycle, when the vernal equinox was located in the constellation Leo. Thus, the entire Giza complex represents a giant astronomical time machine, a stone map of the starry sky, pointing to a specific date in the distant past, an era that preceded all civilizations known to us. But Egypt is not the only place where we find traces of ancient knowledge of precession. According to research by astroarchaeologist John Grigsby, the temple complex of Angkor Wat in Cambodia is an earthly reflection of the constellation Draco. Its layout repeats the configuration of the stars in this constellation in minute detail, but, as in the case of Giza, the correspondence does not refer to the modern era, but to the 10th millennium BC, the same date. In the Temple of Dendera in Upper Egypt, archaeologists discovered a unique artifact, a circular stone map of the starry sky known as the Dendera Zodiac. This bas-relief, more than 2.5 meters in diameter, contains a detailed image of constellations, planets, and various astronomical cycles. French scientists who deciphered this star map in the 19th century were surprised to discover that it depicts the configuration of the sky corresponding to the era of about 50,000 years ago. On the Nazca Plateau in Peru, renowned archaeoastronomer Maria Reicha, who spent more than half a century studying the mysterious geoglyphs, concluded that many of the lines and figures represent a giant astronomical calendar. These Earth drawings indicate the points of sunrise and sunset of key stars and constellations in different historical eras, taking into account their slow shift due to precession. Even in distant Polynesia, on Easter Island, the Moai statues demonstrate a connection with the precession cycles. The 7 statues on Ahu Akivi, the only ones on the island facing the ocean, are oriented so that on the day of the spring equinox, they face the sunrise exactly head-on. But this orientation was not accurate in our time, but in the era when the statues were supposedly created, about 1,000 years ago. All these examples point to a striking fact. Ancient civilizations had a profound knowledge of astronomy, far surpassing what we are accustomed to attributing to them. They understood not only the visible movements of the sun, moon, and planets, but also the barely perceptible cycles of the starry sky, stretching over thousands of years. Knowledge of precession requires continuous astronomical observations over many centuries, as well as complex mathematical calculations. This is the highest mathematics of celestial mechanics, and the fact that ancient masters mastered it and embodied it in stone completely destroys the familiar picture of the gradual progress of humanity from savagery to civilization. Ideas about the existence of a global energy grid connecting anomalous and sacred places on Earth were in the air throughout the 20th century. Mystics spoke of ley lines, esotericists of places of power, and ufologists of zones of anomalous activity. But it was in the 1980s that 3 American researchers gave this romantic idea a rigorous scientific form and mathematical justification. Professors William Becker of the University of Illinois and Bette Hagens of Howard University, together with zoologist Ivan Sanderson, proposed a revolutionary hypothesis. They suggested that the energy framework of our planet is not a simple rectangular grid, as some of their predecessors believed, but a complex 3-dimensional geometric structure based on 2 platonic solids, regular polyhedra inscribed within each other. The basis of their model was the icosahedron and the dodecahedron. An icosahedron is a regular 20-sided polyhedron with 20 triangular faces, 30 edges, and 12 vertices. A dodecahedron is a regular 12-sided polyhedron with 12 pentagonal faces, 30 edges, and 20 vertices. These 2 polyhedra are geometric twins. If you connect the centers of the faces of one, you get the other. By combining the icosahedron and the dodecahedron and projecting them onto the surface of the globe, Becker and Hagen obtained a complex planetary grid consisting of 120 nodes connected by geodesic lines. This structure, named the Russian grid in honor of the earlier work of Soviet researchers Nikolai Goncharov, Vyacheslav Makarov, and Valery Morozov, had a striking property. When scientists superimposed this theoretical grid onto a real map of the Earth, the result exceeded all expectations. Virtually all of the key megalithic complexes we discussed in previous chapters turned out to be located either exactly at the nodes of this geometric grid or on its edges. The pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, Teotihuacan, Easter Island, the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, and the temples of Angkor Wat all fit perfectly into the structure predicted by the mathematical model. But it is not only ancient megaliths that fall within the grid's nodes. Researchers were amazed to discover that many other important geographical features and anomalous zones also gravitate toward these points. The Hawaiian Islands, with their powerful volcanic activity, are located exactly at the center of one of the nodes. The Bermuda Triangle is at another. The Devil's Sea off the coast of Japan, where, according to sailors, strange phenomena are observed and unexplained disappearances of ships occur, is in the third. The Great Rift Valley in East Africa, where paleontologists find the oldest remains of human ancestors, stretches exactly along one of the grid's ribs. The Tibetan Plateau, with its numerous shrines and mystical traditions, is located at the intersection of several lines. Even modern megacities, London, New York, Moscow, turned out to be tied to the nodes of an ancient system. The Becker-Hagen's grid has shown that the location of the most important objects on our planet, both ancient and modern, is not random, but subject to strict mathematical and geometric logic. This logic is based on the fundamental principles of sacred geometry, which seem to reflect the deep structure of reality itself. But what is this structure from a physical point of view? The authors of the model suggested that the Earth is not just a ball of rock and metal, but a complex crystal-like object with an internal geometric organization. The nodes of the planetary grid are points where the planet's internal energy emerges to the surface, or where it is concentrated and focused. These nodes can be compared to acupuncture points on the human body, places where the life energy qi is most accessible for influence. According to this analogy, the ancient builders of megaliths were a kind of planetary acupuncturists. They knew the location of the Earth's energy centers and erected stone structures at these points that could interact with planetary forces. Pyramids, dolmens, menhirs, and other megalithic objects in this model are not just religious structures, but a kind of technical device. Antennas, resonators, generators, or accumulators of planetary energy. They could have been used for a wide variety of purposes, from stabilizing tectonic processes to creating global communication and navigation systems. The Becker-Hagen's model became a powerful analytical tool that allowed researchers to see a hidden order where they had previously seen only chaos and scattered archaeological objects. It shifted the discussion of ancient mysteries from the realm of pure mysticism to the field of geometry, crystallography, and planetary physics. One of the first to systematically investigate the idea of the existence of special zones on Earth with anomalous physical properties was the American-Scottish zoologist and writer Ivan Terence Sanderson in the early 1970s. This scientist, known for his expeditions in search of mysterious animals and anomalous phenomena, drew attention to a strange geographical pattern in the distribution of unexplained incidents across the planet. Studying reports of mysterious disappearances of ships and aircraft, navigation equipment malfunctions, encounters with unidentified flying objects, and other anomalous phenomena, Sanderson discovered that such cases were not concentrated randomly around the world, but in specific, clearly defined areas. Moreover, these areas were located on the Earth's surface in a surprisingly symmetrical pattern. Sanderson identified 12 such anomalous zones, which he figuratively called vile vortices, or cursed places. 5 of them were located in the area of the 30th parallel of the Northern Hemisphere, another 5 in the area of the 30th parallel of the Southern Hemisphere, and 2 additional nodes were located at the north and south poles of the planet. The most famous of these vile vortices is, of course, the Bermuda Triangle in the Atlantic Ocean between Florida, Puerto Rico, and the Bermuda Islands. Here, according to numerous reports, dozens of ships and aircraft have disappeared, including the famous squadron of torpedo bombers Avenger, of the 19th Squadron of the U.S. Navy in 1945. Radio contact with the aircraft was suddenly lost, and their wreckage was never found, despite days of searching. The second most famous whirlpool after Sanderson's was the Devil's Sea, Ma no Umi, south of Japan, near the islands of Miyakojima and Hachijojima. For centuries, Japanese fishermen told terrifying stories about these waters, where ships disappeared without a trace and compasses began to spin wildly. In the 1950s, the Japanese government even declared the area dangerous for shipping. Other vortex locations included the area west of Algiers in the Mediterranean Sea, the Indus Valley in Pakistan, where Mohenjo-Daro is located, the Hawaiian Islands in the Pacific Ocean, the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, the area west of Peru in the Pacific Ocean near the Nazca Lines, the area east of Australia, the Falkland Islands in the South Atlantic, Easter Island, and the surrounding waters in the Pacific Ocean. When researchers superimposed Sanderson's map of nasty whirlpools on the Becker-Hagen's geometric grid in the 1980s, they found an almost perfect match. Sanderson's anomalous zones turned out to be the exact nodes of a planetary icosahedral dodecahedral grid. This discovery gave the theory a completely new and frightening meaning. The nodes of the global network turned out to be not just ancient places of power, where our ancestors built temples and pyramids. They are also zones of geophysical instability, where the laws of physics as we know them can seriously malfunction. Powerful electromagnetic anomalies are observed at these points, capable of disabling any electronic equipment. Gravitational disturbances, deviations in the Earth's magnetic field, and possibly even local distortions of space-time are recorded here. Modern geophysicists confirm that unusual phenomena are indeed observed in the area of foul whirlpools. The Earth's magnetic field in these zones is unstable and can change sharply in intensity and direction. Gravimetric measurements show anomalies in gravity. Seismologists note increased tectonic activity in the vicinity of many grid nodes. What if the ancient builders of megalithic structures knew about these anomalies and erected their cyclopean structures at these points not only to use their energy, but also to stabilize and control it? What if the pyramids, menhirs, dolmens, and stone circles are a kind of planetary fuse, technical devices designed to harmonize the chaotic forces of the Earth? This hypothesis explains many of the mysterious features of megalithic architecture. Why are most ancient structures built from quartz-containing rocks, such as granite, sandstone, and basalt? Quartz has a unique piezoelectric effect. It can generate electric current under mechanical pressure and, conversely, vibrate mechanically under the influence of an electric field. Giant granite structures weighing thousands of tons, located at the nodes of the planetary energy grid, could function as huge piezoelectric resonators. They were tuned to specific frequencies, possibly the Schumann frequency, 7.5 Hz, the Earth's main electromagnetic resonance, and thus harmonized the planetary energy field. Some researchers go even further and suggest that the megalithic network served as a global planetary security system. It could prevent catastrophic earthquakes, stabilize the climate, and protect the biosphere from cosmic cataclysms. In this model, ancient builders appear not as primitive pagans worshipping stones, but as highly advanced ecological engineers who created a planetary life support system. If this hypothesis is correct, then the destruction or oblivion of the megalithic system could have led to the destabilization of planetary processes. Increased seismic activity, abrupt climate change, and frequent natural disasters, are these not the consequences of our loss of knowledge about how to maintain the energy balance of our planet? Perhaps ancient myths about battles between gods and monsters, about the struggle between the forces of light and darkness, are allegorical descriptions of our ancestors' efforts to tame the chaotic forces of nature and transform a wild planet into a habitable, stable world. Any beautiful and comprehensive theory that claims to rethink established scientific paradigms must inevitably undergo rigorous testing through critical analysis. The global megalithic grid theory is no exception. Orthodox academic science and skeptical researchers have put forward a number of compelling counter-arguments that cannot be ignored if we truly seek an objective understanding of the truth, rather than building beautiful but groundless castles in the air. The first and most fundamental argument of critics is related to the so-called Texas sharpshooter fallacy, or confirmation bias. The name of this logical fallacy comes from an anecdote about a marksman who first shoots at a barn wall and then draws a target around the densest cluster of bullet holes, creating the illusion of incredible accuracy. Skeptics argue that proponents of the global grid theory are doing the same thing. There are literally tens of thousands of archaeological sites on the surface of our planet, from megalithic structures to ancient cities, from burial mounds to rock paintings. With such a huge amount of data, it is mathematically inevitable that some of them will turn out to be connected by various geometric relationships. According to critics, alternative history researchers first select the most impressive and well-known sites and then fit them into a particular geometric model, be it a straight line, a circle, or a complex, multifaceted grid. At the same time, hundreds of other ancient structures that do not fit into the chosen scheme are simply ignored or declared less significant. The second serious argument concerns the problem of measurement accuracy and coordinate determination. Often, in order to construct ideal geometric relationships, researchers have to make significant assumptions. For example, the reference point may not be the geometric center of the pyramid, but its northeast corner. Or instead of the center of an ancient city, a point located several kilometers away is used. In addition, the Earth's crust is in constant motion due to plate tectonics. The continents are slowly but steadily drifting across the planet's surface at a speed of several centimeters per year. Over thousands of years, these shifts can amount to tens and hundreds of meters, which significantly distorts the accuracy of any geometric constructions based on the modern coordinates of ancient objects. The third important counter-argument is related to the lack of direct historical evidence. Archaeologists and historians find no direct references in ancient texts, papyri, cuneiform tablets, or hieroglyphic inscriptions to a global coordinate grid, to sacred geometry as presented by modern enthusiasts, or to knowledge of the precession cycle. There are no construction drawings of pyramids indicating the number pi, no ancient maps with a planetary grid, and no mathematical treatises with calculations of the golden ratio. All theories are based exclusively on modern interpretations of geometry and the relative positions of structures, which always leaves a lot of room for subjective speculation and stretching. Skeptics are especially critical of claims that ancient builders intentionally incorporated various mathematical constants into their structures, with a sufficiently large number of measurable parameters of any complex object: height, width, length, perimeter, diagonal, area, volume, angles of inclination of faces, and so on. It is always possible to find ratios that are approximately equal to any predetermined number. This phenomenon is known in mathematics as the problem of multiple comparisons. If enough statistical tests are conducted, some of them are bound to show significant results, even in the complete absence of real patterns. Therefore, finding ratios close to pi or the golden ratio in pyramids may be a simple statistical artifact rather than evidence of conscious design by the builders. As for astronomical correlations, such as the correspondence of the pyramids of Giza to the stars of Orion's belt, critics point to the extremely small sample size. 3 stars and 3 pyramids are too little data for a statistically significant conclusion. There are thousands of bright stars in the sky, forming millions of possible triangles and other geometric figures. With such an abundance of options, it is not particularly difficult to find a correspondence between any 3 terrestrial objects and any group of stars. Moreover, critics point to the basic principle of the scientific method. Correlation does not imply causation. Even if the pyramids are indeed located in the same way as the stars of Orion, this does not prove that the builders deliberately reproduce the star map. Perhaps they simply chose the most convenient locations for construction, guided by purely practical considerations: proximity to quarries, the availability of solid ground, transport accessibility, and the similarity to the constellation was only noticed by modern researchers. These arguments sound sober, logical, and methodologically sound. They urge us not to succumb to the temptation of beautiful hypotheses and demand more rigorous, scientifically verifiable evidence. Skeptics are right that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the desire to see hidden patterns in random data is a well-known psychological feature of human thinking. However, even while acknowledging the critics' point on many methodological issues, it's hard to shake the feeling that the total number of coincidences and accidents in global grid theory has long passed a critical threshold. Too many independent, diverse anomalies and patterns point in the same direction for all of them to be dismissed as a game of chance. Let's put aside for a moment the debate about whether a global megalithic grid actually exists and assume that it is real. In that case, we are faced with the most intriguing and fundamentally important question: what was its true purpose? Why did an ancient civilization with such enormous capabilities spend colossal resources on creating a planetary system of stone giants? Alternative history researchers have put forward 3 main versions of the functional purpose of the megalithic network, which do not exclude but may complement each other, forming a single technological complex of unimaginable complexity. The first version considers the global network as a planetary-scale navigation system. Imagine a highly developed ancient civilization whose representatives regularly traveled long distances around the world, perhaps on fast ships capable of crossing oceans, or perhaps even flying machines similar to the Vimanas described in detail in the ancient Indian texts Vimanika Shatra and Samaranga Sutradhara. How could such travelers navigate without modern GPS satellites and radio navigation systems? A global network of megalithic structures strategically located at key nodes of the planetary grid could have served as an ideal system of ground-based beacons. These colossal stone structures were visible from vast distances and served as reliable landmarks for sailors and aviators. Moreover, pyramids and other megaliths could generate certain physical fields: electromagnetic, acoustic, gravitational, or based on principles unknown to us that could be detected using special instruments on board ancient vehicles. Such a system would have ensured accurate navigation in all weather conditions, day and night, even when the stars were not visible. This hypothesis explains why many megaliths are located on high ground, why they were built with such grandeur, and why their location follows strict geometric patterns. The navigation network must provide uniform coverage of the entire surface of the planet and accurate reference to geographical coordinates. The second version suggests that the megalithic network was a global energy system. This revolutionary idea was actively developed by the great inventor Nikola Tesla in the early 20th century. He was convinced that the Earth and its ionosphere form a giant spherical capacitor that can be used to transmit electrical energy wirelessly to any point on the planet. Tesla built the experimental Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island in an attempt to put this idea into practice. His experiments demonstrated the fundamental possibility of transmitting energy through the ground and the atmosphere without wires. Unfortunately, the project did not receive financial support and was shut down, but the theoretical foundations remained. What if ancient builders did not just dream of a global energy system, but had already created and successfully operated one? Pyramids and other megalithic structures located at energetically active nodes of the planetary grid could extract energy from various sources: geothermal energy from the Earth's interior, atmospheric electricity during thunderstorms, cosmic radiation, tidal forces, piezoelectric currents from tectonic stresses, and transmit it over long distances. This energy could be used for a wide variety of purposes: to light ancient cities, to power mechanisms and devices unknown to us, for industrial processes such as metal smelting or stone processing, and even to power the very vehicles that use the navigation network. This version explains why megaliths are built with such incredible precision and from special materials. They were not temples for religious ceremonies, but high-tech devices, components of a complex planetary power plant. The use of quartz-containing rocks, granite, sandstone, is due to their piezoelectric properties, which are necessary for converting mechanical vibrations into electrical current. The third version considers the megalithic network as a global information and communication system, a kind of ancient analog of the modern internet. The megalithic nodes could serve not only to transmit energy, but also to transmit information between remote centers of ancient civilization. Low-frequency electromagnetic waves capable of traveling thousands of kilometers through the Earth's crust, or Schumann resonances, standing electromagnetic waves between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere, could have been used for long-distance communication. It is possible that completely unknown principles of information transfer were used, such as torsion fields, quantum entanglement, or gravitational wave modulation. In addition, the megalithic system itself could have functioned as a giant information storage device, a planetary equivalent of a hard drive. Knowledge could have been encoded in the geometry of the structures, in their resonant characteristics, and in the peculiarities of stone processing. Initiated priests and scientists could connect to this network and read the encoded information using special rituals, meditative practices, or technical devices. This idea echoes the esoteric concepts of the Akashic records in Hindu and Theosophical traditions, or Vladimir Vernadsky's scientific hypothesis of the noosphere, an information energy field surrounding the Earth and containing all information about the development of life and mind on the planet. Which of these three versions is true? It is quite possible that all three are true. A highly developed ancient civilization could have created a multifunctional planetary system that provided its representatives with three essential infrastructure components: precise navigation for long-distance travel, inexhaustible energy for technological processes, and instant communication between all corners of the inhabited world. If a global network of megalithic structures really exists and performed such complex technological functions, then the main question inevitably arises: who created it? None of the officially recognized ancient civilizations, neither the Egyptians of the pharaohs, nor the Sumerians of Mesopotamia, nor the mysterious builders of Stonehenge, nor the Maya Indians, possessed, according to traditional historical science, the necessary knowledge and technology to implement such a grandiose project. Moreover, all these cultures appeared on the historical stage already equipped with a wealth of surprisingly advanced knowledge in the fields of astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and architecture. It seems that they did not develop this knowledge through a long evolutionary process, but received it in a ready-made form from some predecessors or teachers, from whom this brings us to the most daring and revolutionary hypothesis in modern alternative archaeology: the hypothesis of the existence in ancient times of a highly developed global pre-civilization, which researchers often identify with Plato's legendary Atlantis. The world first heard about Atlantis from the great ancient Greek philosopher Plato in the 4th century BC. In his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, he told a striking story that he allegedly heard from the Athenian politician Solon, who in turn received it from Egyptian priests in the temple of the goddess Neith in the city of Sais. According to this story, 9,000 years before Solon's time, that is, approximately 9,500 years before our era, there was a powerful maritime empire located on a large island in the Atlantic Ocean beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the modern Strait of Gibraltar. This civilization reached an unprecedented level of development in science and the arts, created a powerful fleet and an extensive trade network covering the entire known world at that time. According to Plato, the Atlanteans possessed amazing technologies. Their cities were adorned with palaces made of gold, silver, and orichalcum, a mysterious metal more valuable than gold. They had a developed system of canals and ports. Their ships sailed all the seas, and their warriors were armed with perfect weapons. Prosperity continued for thousands of years. But gradually the Atlanteans lost the wisdom and virtue of their ancestors and became greedy and warlike. Then the gods decided to punish them for their sins. In a single day and night, the island of Atlantis was destroyed by monstrous earthquakes and floods and disappeared forever into the depths of the ocean. According to Plato's chronology, this happened about 9,500 years before our era. For a long time, scientists considered the story of Atlantis to be a philosophical allegory invented by Plato to illustrate his ideas about the ideal state. However, the date of the legendary civilization's demise coincides strikingly with real geological and climatic cataclysms that occurred on Earth at the end of the last ice age. About 11 to 10,000 years ago, our planet experienced a period of dramatic change known to geologists as the Pleistocene-Holocene boundary. Giant ice sheets covering much of North America and Europe began to melt rapidly. The level of the world's oceans rose by 120 meters, flooding vast coastal plains where ancient civilizations may have existed. This period was marked by the mass extinction of large mammals, megafauna, sharp climatic fluctuations, and possibly the fall of a large cosmic object, a comet or asteroid, traces of which some researchers find in the geological layers of that time. What if the myth of Atlantis is not the invention of an ancient philosopher, but a historical account distorted by time about a real global catastrophe that destroyed a highly developed civilization? What if the representatives of this civilization were indeed the gods and cultural heroes unanimously described in the myths and legends of all peoples of the world? According to this hypothesis, the Atlanteans who survived the cataclysm, or their disciples and descendants, could have scattered across the globe, becoming the founders and teachers of new civilizational centers in Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, China, and Mesoamerica. They brought with them the remnants of the lost civilization's knowledge, an understanding of astronomy and mathematics, skills in monumental construction, and the basics of agriculture and crafts. They may have been the true creators of the global megalithic network, either as an attempt to restore the planetary infrastructure destroyed by a cataclysm, or as messages for future generations, encrypted in eternal stone. This hypothesis elegantly explains many archaeological and cultural mysteries. It answers the question of why ancient civilizations, separated by thousands of kilometers of oceans and existing in different historical eras, show striking similarities in mythology, architectural styles, and technological achievements. It explains the origin of the universal motif of pyramids, from Egypt and Mexico to China and Sudan. It reveals the secret of knowledge common to all cultures in the fields of astronomy and mathematics. And it provides an explanation for the paradoxical fact that this knowledge did not develop over time, but rather degraded and simplified. The Egyptians of the Middle and New Kingdoms were no longer able to reproduce the technical perfection of the pyramids of the 4th dynasty. The builders of medieval temples in India did not achieve the mastery of the creators of ancient cave complexes. The late Mayans of the classical period built structures that were less monumental than those of their mysterious predecessors of the pre-classical era. It seems that all the ancient civilizations known to us did not live by their own minds, but by their heritage, gradually squandering and forgetting the knowledge they had received from their great predecessors. The hypothesis of the existence and demise of an ancient pre-civilization would be nothing more than beautiful speculation if it were not strongly supported by folklore, mythology, and religious traditions of peoples around the world. The most universal and strikingly uniform is the myth of the Great Flood, a global water catastrophe that destroyed the previous human race. This archetypal story is found in the mythological systems of more than 500 different cultures on all continents of the Earth, including peoples living in arid regions far from large bodies of water. The geography of the spread of the flood myth is so extensive that it rules out the possibility of borrowing or cultural diffusion between distant peoples. The details of the narrative may vary depending on local traditions, but the basic plot remains the same. Humanity, or part of it, was mired in vice and lawlessness, and angry deities decided to destroy the wicked race with a devastating flood. But, warned one righteous man who built an ark and saved himself, his family, and representatives of the animal world to revive life on the purified earth. In Mesopotamian tradition, this is Utnapishtim from the Epic of Gilgamesh and Ziusudra from the Sumerian king list. In the biblical tradition, it is the righteous Noah who built the ark at the direct command of Yahweh. In ancient Greek mythology, it is Deucalion, son of the Titan Prometheus, who escaped the flood caused by Zeus. In Hindu tradition, it is Manu, warned by the god Vishnu in the form of a fish. Among the Aztecs, it is Coxcox. Among the Incas, Tampu, and among the Australian Aborigines, Ngurunderi. The striking similarity of these independently developed myths can only be explained in one way. They are based on memories of a real historical event, a global catastrophe that affected the entire planet, and left an indelible mark on the collective memory of humanity. Modern geology and climatology confirm that such a catastrophe did indeed occur. About 11 to 10,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, there was a rapid melting of continental glaciers. The level of the world's oceans rose by more than 100 meters, flooding vast coastal plains with a total area of approximately 25 million square kilometers. This catastrophe must have completely destroyed any civilizations, cities, and settlements located in the lowlands and on the sea coasts. That is, precisely where it would have been logical for maritime trading powers, such as Plato's Atlantis, to develop. But myths tell not only of the destruction of the old world, but also of the creation of a new one. After the flood, mysterious characters appear in various parts of the planet. Gods of civilization, or cultural heroes, who teach the survivors the basics of civilized life. In Egypt, these are the Shemu Hor, companions of Horus, or followers of Horus, divine sages who, according to priestly chronicles, ruled the country in the pre-dynastic period and laid the foundations of Egyptian civilization. They brought knowledge of writing, the calendar, medicine, astronomy, mathematics, and monumental construction. In Mesopotamia, a similar role was played by the Apkallu, 7 amphibious sages who emerged from the waters of the Persian Gulf under the leadership of the mysterious Oan. According to the Babylonian priest and historian Berossus, who lived in the 3rd century BC, these creatures had the bodies of fish and the heads of humans. During the day, they came ashore and taught people all the arts and sciences, returning to the sea at night. In Mesoamerica, the central figure of the civilizing myth is Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. He is known to the Maya as Kukulkan and to the Andean peoples as Viracocha. This character is described as a tall, bearded man of European appearance who arrived from the east on a ship without oars. He taught the Indians agriculture, crafts, writing, the calendar, and astronomy, and then disappeared, promising to return in the future. In China, the role of the great civilizer is played by the legendary Huangdi, the Yellow Emperor, who, according to myth, descended from heaven on a metal dragon and gave the Chinese the foundations of statehood, medicine, technology, and writing. In India, ancient texts tell of the Saptarishi, 7 great sages who restored Vedic knowledge after the flood and passed it on to the people. In the Zoroastrian tradition of Persia, these are the Amesha Spentas, immortal saints who serve Ahura Mazda. All these mythological characters share a number of common characteristics. They appear after a global catastrophe and are often described as coming from the sea, from the sky, or from across the ocean. They are bearers of higher knowledge and technology far superior to that of the surrounding peoples. They act as teachers and mentors, laying the foundations for new civilizations. And they are often described as beings different from ordinary people, taller, fair-skinned, long-lived, or even immortal. Could these mythological images be distorted memories of real historical figures? Survivors of a lost civilization? Were the gods and cultural heroes of antiquity Atlanteans, or their descendants who, after a cataclysm, scattered across the world, carrying with them the remnants of the knowledge and technology of their lost homeland? This hypothesis explains the striking unity of mythological motifs among peoples who, according to official history, never had contact with each other. It reveals the secret of the common archetypes of the collective unconscious, and it transforms mythology from a collection of primitive superstitions into an encrypted historical chronicle, evidence of the cycles of rise and fall of civilizations on our planet. In this context, the global network of megalithic structures appears as the most compelling material evidence of the truth of ancient legends. A stone monument erected by those very gods who civilized humanity as a lesson and instruction for their distant descendants. Until recently, archaeology was a science of shovels and brushes, patient sifting of soil, and painstaking clearing of ancient ruins. Researchers could only study what was visible on the surface or at a shallow depth below the ground. But in the 21st century, revolutionary technologies have come to the aid of archaeologists, allowing them to peer into the past without disturbing a single stone. And these technologies are bringing discoveries that increasingly confirm the most daring hypotheses about the scale and complexity of ancient civilizations. One such breakthrough technology is the high-resolution laser rangefinder, known as LiDAR, light detection and ranging. This device, mounted on an aircraft or unmanned drone, flies over the area being surveyed and sends millions of infrared laser pulses per second downwards. These pulses are partially reflected by tree foliage, but a significant portion passes through the vegetation and is reflected from the ground surface. A computer analyzes the return time of each pulse and creates an incredibly accurate three-dimensional map of the terrain with a resolution of up to several centimeters. At the same time, vegetation can be removed using software, providing a detailed image of what is hidden under the canopy of the jungle or forest, which can be several meters thick. In recent years, LiDAR scanning has led to some stunning archaeological discoveries. In the jungles of Guatemala, an international team of researchers led by Archon Barchai from Tulane University discovered more than 60,000 previously unknown structures built by the Maya civilization. Hidden beneath the green canopy of the tropical forest were gigantic cities with pyramids, palaces, residential quarters, canal systems, and roads. It turned out that the Mayan civilization was dozens of times more developed and numerous than scientists had previously thought. Its cities were not isolated centers lost in the jungle, but formed a single urbanized network covering tens of thousands of square kilometers. The total population during its heyday could have reached 15 to 20 million people. Most interestingly, these ancient megacities also show signs of being part of a global coordinate system. Their main structures are oriented strictly according to the cardinal points. Their layout follows the laws of sacred geometry, and their location relative to other Mayan centers follows certain mathematical patterns. In Mexico, LiDAR scanning of the Yucatan Peninsula revealed a network of ancient roads, Sacbe, connecting various Mayan cities. Some of these roads stretch for hundreds of kilometers through impenetrable jungles and swamps, connecting remote centers in perfectly straight lines. How the Maya built such roads without modern surveying instruments remains a mystery. Another revolutionary technology is satellite archaeology, the analysis of high-resolution images obtained from orbital devices. Modern satellites can photograph the Earth's surface in various ranges of the electromagnetic spectrum: visible, infrared, radar, allowing the detection of archaeological objects hidden underground or underwater. In Egypt, American archaeologist Sarah Parcak from the University of Alabama used infrared satellite images to discover more than 1,000 previously unknown settlements and 17 potential pyramids hidden under the desert sands. Infrared imaging allows areas with different soil densities to be distinguished. Ancient foundations and walls appear as darker spots against the surrounding sand. In China's Gobi Desert, satellites have discovered mysterious geometric structures resembling the runways of modern airfields. These objects have perfectly straight boundaries and regular geometric shapes, which rules out their natural origin. The Chinese authorities have not yet allowed detailed research, but the very fact of their existence raises many questions. However, perhaps the most sensational discoveries were made underwater. Modern sonar and underwater photography have revealed several structures of clearly artificial origin on the seabed. The most famous underwater formation is near the Japanese island of Yonaguni, discovered by diver Kihachiro Aratake in 1986. This structure is a stepped pyramid about 25 meters high with clearly defined right angles, flat surfaces, and geometrically regular steps. Most geologists consider it an unusual natural formation, but Professor Masaki Kimura of Ryukyu University claims that at least part of the structure was man-made. Yonaguni was submerged approximately 12,000 years ago, which is exactly when, according to myth, Atlantis was destroyed. Could this underwater pyramid be one of the few remaining monuments of a legendary civilization? Similar underwater structures have been discovered in the Gulf of Cambay off the west coast of India, near the island of Cuba in the Caribbean Sea, and in the Black Sea off the coast of Bulgaria. All of them are located at depths corresponding to the sea level 10 to 12,000 years ago and show signs of artificial origin. These new technologies are giving alternative history researchers increasingly powerful tools to test their hypotheses. LIDAR and satellites show that we know only a small part of our planet's archaeological heritage. Huge layers of ancient history are still hidden from us under the canopy of the jungle, the thickness of desert sands, and the waters of the world's oceans. Each new scan, each new image, brings discoveries that force us to rethink established ideas about the past. We are beginning to understand that ancient civilizations were much more developed, numerous, and interconnected than previously thought. And the more we use these technologies of the future to study the past, the clearer the contours of the very global system we are trying to understand become. Perhaps we are truly on the threshold of the greatest discovery in human history, the discovery of our own forgotten prehistory. We are completing our long and exciting journey across a mysterious map that may be etched into the face of our planet itself. We began our exploration at the foot of the Great Sphinx, which holds the mystery of its true age, and followed invisible lines that may connect the greatest archaeological sites of antiquity. We saw how the pyramids of Giza, the mysterious geoglyphs of Nazca, the silent statues of Easterisland, and the majestic temples of Angkor Wat form not a random mosaic of scattered wonders, but a single, mathematically coherent system on a planetary scale. We delved into the mysteries of the mathematics of the gods, the sacred geometry encoded in the proportions of ancient structures, and touched the majestic celestial clock of precession, which measures cosmic epochs lasting thousands of years. We examined scientific models, such as the Becker-Hagen's icosahedral dodecahedral grid, which attempt to explain this hidden geometric order from the perspective of modern crystallography and planetary physics. We listened carefully to the compelling arguments of academic skeptics who urge us not to build grandiose theories on a foundation of statistical coincidences and subjective interpretations. We have explored the possible functional purposes of this hypothetical global system, from a planetary navigation network and global energy infrastructure to a global information and communication system similar to the ancient Internet. We trace the vague, semi-mythical traces of the supposed builders of this network, the legendary Atlanteans, or gods of civilization, whose stories, distorted by time, have been preserved in universal myths about the Great Flood and the subsequent rebirth of civilization. And we have seen how modern high technologies, LiDAR scanning and satellite archaeology, like time machines, are beginning to lift the thick veil of millennia over this lost world. So, after this extensive research, we come to the main question. What is it? A grand design or a grand illusion? Is the global network of megalithic structures indisputable proof of the existence in ancient times of a highly developed pre-civilization whose knowledge, technology, and achievements we are only beginning to vaguely comprehend? Or is this entire grandiose construction merely a figment of our imagination, which tends to find order and patterns in random chaos, the result of a human psychological need to see hidden meaning where there may not be any? The honest answer is that we do not yet have a definitive and indisputable solution to this dilemma. Moreover, perhaps there cannot be such an unambiguous answer at this stage of our knowledge and technology for researching the past. We are at a point in scientific inquiry where the number of questions exceeds the number of answers, and each new discovery gives rise to even more mysteries. But the very fact that we can ask this question, that we are able to see potential connections between objects separated by thousands of kilometers and millennia, fundamentally changes our attitude toward the past and toward ourselves. This mystery compels us to look at ancient ruins not as primitive religious structures created by backward ancestors, but as possible traces of something immeasurably more complex and advanced. It teaches us an important lesson in scientific and human humility, showing that our modern technological world, with its computers, satellites, and space flights, may not be the pinnacle of human development, the final point of the evolution of the mind, but only one of many turns in the endless spiral of the rise and fall of civilization on our planet. Perhaps we are not the first intelligent beings to achieve a high level of technological development on Earth. Perhaps, long before us, civilizations flourished here, whose achievements in some areas surpassed our own. And perhaps, like them, we are not the final word in the history of earthly intelligence. This mystery challenges every thinking person. It calls on us not to blindly accept the dogmas of official historical science, but at the same time, not to fall into the extremes of unproven myth-making. It teaches us to think critically, to analyze facts carefully, to compare different sources of information, and to always remain open to new data, even if it contradicts our established beliefs. Only such an approach can bring us closer to the truth about our past. And this truth, judging by the accumulating evidence, may turn out to be much more surprising, complex, and exciting than the wildest science fiction. We may discover that we do not live in the first high-tech civilization on Earth, but are the heirs and continuers of a much more ancient and wise tradition. The greatest mysteries of our planet still await their explorers and discoverers. The vast expanses of the ocean floor, the inaccessible depths of cave systems, the landscapes hidden under the glaciers of Antarctica, the cities buried under the sands of the desert. All of this may hold the keys to understanding our true heritage. And perhaps the most important of these keys lies not in the distant cosmos among the stars, but right beneath our feet, encrypted in the silent megaliths of antiquity, which patiently await humanity's attainment of sufficient wisdom and knowledge to understand their true message. The journey to unravel this mystery is just beginning. And each of us can be part of this great quest. This quest to understand who we are, where we came from, and what place we occupy in the grand history of the mind on planet Earth.